Wow. Yeah. So in terms of the spirituality of Yom Kippur this year, it's the same as last year for you.
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. So looking back on the breaking news of Malka Leifer, and I want to tell you that I was at Monash University at the time, and I was teaching management. And this was a Friday morning, and I got my coffee from the machine, and there was the age, and I looked at it, and I thought, oh my gosh, I recognized um, that building. Um, so I just wanted to ask you, looking back on the breaking news of Malka Leifer, the assisted escape, as we might call it, what were your feelings then, and how did you manage your feelings, your anger, or whatever you felt?
11 years ago.
Yeah.
I think there
How
was
old were
more.
you then? Sorry. How old were
Pardon?
you? How old were you then, Nicole?
I was 22,
22.
I believe.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of shock at that time. There was no proper understanding what is happening.
Mm.
I didn't know she was going to leave.
Mm.
It was a big shock. All of it was a big shock.
Yeah.
Her, knowing that it had been outed, meaning that people knew what she
Mm-hmm.
had done to us and
Mm.
others. And looking back in hindsight, it would have been good had someone said, the right thing to do now is let's go to the police station, let's talk,
Yeah.
and let's put her behind bars. It would have avoided 70 court hearings that we are still going through.
Why do you think that didn't happen then, Nicole? For us, it's weird to understand this. For me, it's weird to understand this.
I can't
For
answer
most
that.
people,
I can't
yeah.
answer that.
Mm. So I wanted to ask you, how did you manage then your emotions, the 22-year-old, your anger and whatever you were feeling? How did you manage that?
Wasn't feeling anything at
Uh,
all.
you were numbed.
Yeah.
Mm. When did you start to feel that? Because this is
I
the
haven't I haven't felt any anger. I don't think anger is an emotion I can easily feel.
right.
Um, so when I started therapy, probably a couple of years ago, is when I really started delving into the feelings around
Okay.
everything.
Okay. And you and your three sisters live here, and that's also a terrible tragedy that you had in your family, in Israel as well. Is that correct? One of your sisters.
My older sister passed away just 6 years ago in England. She was buried in Israel.
Was she involved at all in this?
No, she wasn't, but she received pressure from Israel
Did she?
to ask us to drop the case.
Really? So
Yeah.
you've been dealing with all that then? That's really, yeah. So during the following years, you managed your pain in your own way, and you started the Bring Back Malka Leifer campaign. How did that start?
That began early 2017. My sister Dusty had begun to give some public talks and share her story.
Mm-hmm.
That point of time, I was not allowed to say anything publicly as I was still involved in some matters that I could not be public at that point. But I was still very operational behind the scenes.
Uh-huh.
I received a picture of Malka Leifer out and about in Meron on Lag
Wow.
BaOmer when she had been quoted to be like a sack of potatoes at every court hearing, but there she was in a crowd of hundreds and thousands of people, seemingly fine. And that picture kind of spearheaded the campaign to, we can see that she's living a normal life. She's not that unwell as she claims to be every time there is a court hearing. So we're going to do our utmost to get her back and uncover this, what's happening there.
And that was in 2017, so 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, you're quite right, a sack of potatoes. That's what we see. I can't believe she's only 50 what? She seems like, whatever. Can't believe it. Anyway, so let's just look at that. So here in Australia, when you started your Bring Back Malka Leifer campaign, you managed to get some of the politicians involved, didn't you? David Southwick and various other people?
Yes, we have had the support of Ted Baillieu, former Premier,
Right.
David Southwick, Josh Burns, Dave Sharma, and many other politicians, both here and in Israel, who have given us their support along the way in agreeing that Malka Leifer should be brought back to Australia, and their support against sexual abuse being allowed to get away.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose one of the questions that people ask is, and I think we know the answer to it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is this kind of an isolated case within the very orthodox, what do we call it, ultra-orthodox community? Or do you think this is something that is there and it's just you've cracked it open maybe?
Unfortunately, I have a few friends who are from ultra-Orthodox communities who have been abused, both male and female. So no, it is not an isolated case. I believe it happens in every community, no matter what religion or age or gender across the world. And I think that the more we speak about it and the more awareness we raise, then people hopefully will come forward and not allow those abusers to keep abusing. I hope by myself being ultra-Orthodox and coming forward and not being afraid to speak about it, despite others thinking that it's not okay to talk about it, I hope that will give courage to other ultra-Orthodox people to say this is the right thing to do.
So this has been very hard for you, hasn't it, within the ultra-Orthodox community? Your sisters are less so, aren't they?
My sisters are no longer religious.
Right.
I have decided I have remained religious. It is difficult in the sense that I think people are still very uncomfortable to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that silence says a lot more than words. So if you're silent, in my mind, you're agreeing with the abuser. Because it's not that hard to show support, even privately. And there are some people that do. And I appreciate every single one of them that do. But in the majority, I would say 95% of the ultra-Orthodox community are silent. And silent is complicit, in my opinion.
100%. 100%. Now you've got a new rabbi, haven't you, at Hadass now? I must admit I don't even know him. But has that made any difference to your campaign?
Oh, no. I know no rabbi in Melbourne has ever stood up and said that they, in the ultra-Orthodox community, that they support the campaign. So
Really?
I have not spoken or had anything to do with him for any reason.
And how do you feel about, in a way, you're doing something, you could say that Manny Wax did this for child abuse, here and in Israel, and you could say that you're doing the same thing in a different way. You're spearheading a campaign. You're allowing all these other people who were silent now to have a voice. How do you feel about that?
I think that's a large part of our campaign. From quite early on, it wasn't just about our story. It was about being the voice for so many others who can't talk, and giving them hope and giving them inspiration and hopefully giving them courage and support as well. So that's a large part of our campaign.
So, Nicole, we have 10 minutes, so we've only got another couple of minutes left. So has your perception of the whole episode changed in terms of your perception of Israel, the Israel justice system, the Knesset, and your family over there? I know it's a massive question. I'm sorry, but you understand?
I think my love for Israel will never diminish. So despite the campaign causing some very seriously mentally difficult moments there, I can separate that, and I can still love Israel and want to take my family there and give them the joy and the beauty of that country. I think there has been some corruption, as we know, alleged corruption by the health minister. I still have yet to see him be charged and face charges. If I'm not sure if he has been charged, I can't remember. Yes, and I believe that every country has a system that works for its country. It was very different and very difficult to see the way it ran, and I hope that when she comes back to Australia, that it will run differently in the way that I imagine courts systems should run. But there has been some disappointments, but that has not taken away my love for Israel. And
that is wonderful. Nicole, just one more thing. What about, do you know when this is going to happen, or if this is going to happen, the extradition? I mean, do we know this? Or
we seem to be on the path of the extradition happening. I definitely hope that, I imagine an appeal will be lodged. They have 30 days, so an appeal has to be lodged by the 21st of October. Then the Supreme Court has to give a date to hear that appeal. The decision has to be made regarding that appeal. Then a signature has to be signed. A short a window for the appeal to be made at the signature, and then she gets sent here. So hopefully early next year is what we are hoping.
So Nicole, I want to thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to talk to you. And we've been following, all of us, Jews and non-Jews, you know, in Melbourne, know all about this. And the support that you have from so many must be so good for all of you.
Absolutely.
And I want to wish you Hag Sameach,